In satellite images of South Korea, it is possible to make out mysterious strips in the ocean, set out in regular rows along huge stretches near the coast, for miles on end. If we fly closer, we can see that the strips are like fields arranged in the shallow water around the islands. We are determined to take a look at this mysterious place and travel to South Korea. The islands are in the Wando district. From the land, there isn't really much to be seen. Mainly, we can make out buoys as far as the eye can see, and boats move between them now and then. We asked the captain of one boat in the small harbour if he could take us out. It isn't long before we get closer, and now we can see something like fields out here at sea. A fishing boat crosses our path. The captain tries to explain about the nets. It turns out that the boat is a kind of harvester. It positions itself at the beginning of a net, which is then pulled over the bow of the boat. Woo-Nam-chung has been at sea his whole life. He's an algae fisherman. So that's it. Algae grows in the nets. In Korean, it's known as gim. Like a combine harvester in a field, the boat moves underneath the net. Rotating knives cut the algae from the net, leaving a black mass of algae. It may not look very appetizing, but it's extremely popular, and not only in Korea. Up to 850,000 tons of it is harvested here each year. The gim from this region is considered the best in the whole of Korea. It only takes the crew 2 minutes to harvest the algae from one net.
하루에 이거 무기비거든요. 키로로 120kg 기준에 가지고 한 50마대.
This boat alone brings in 6,000 kilograms a day. It's absolutely back-breaking work for the crew. When they have finished, they head back to port. Before we see what happens to the algae next, we want to find out what's in these boxes. We decide to take a closer look. Lots of landing stages tied together. Here, even a crane is used. What are they pulling out? At first sight, it looks like more algae cultivation.
아니요, 저기 전복 먹이.
이게
이게 미역인데.
Snails? They look more like mussels, but they really are snails. Abalones are a delicacy in many Asian countries, including Korea. The snails are removed from the stone plates with water and spades. In the old days, fishermen had to dive for these snails in the open sea. Today, they are farmed on stone plates. Algae is the perfect food for the creatures. These snails are an exclusive delicacy. It takes about 3 years for each one to grow large enough to be sold. The crew harvest about 1,200 abalones each day.
이것은 키로에 10마리가 올라가는데 10마리는 5만 원.
아, 5만 원.
네, 5만 원. 이것은 한 30마리나 올라가는데 2만 5천 원.
The snails are sorted into a total of 14 different sizes. In a restaurant, a plate like this can cost as much as 90 euros. Generally, abalones are eaten raw, but they can also be fried. But what happens to the algae now? The gim fishermen have returned to port. The first buyers are taking a look at today's catch. The algae is packaged for transport before leaving the boats. This is the hardest part of the job because the wet algae is heavy and sticks together. Gim is always harvested between December and March. For the fishermen of this region, algae is the most important source of income. The buyers bid for each ship's load in an auction. Depending on the quality, the fishermen get between 60 and 75 euros per sack. Then the fresh algae is brought to factories like this one. And here it is transformed into sushi wrapping. Sun Pil-so is the manager of the factory, and of course in that capacity he has to try out the goods. And in the process, we also discover that algae has other uses than as a food. After a hard day's work, the employees here like to relax in an algae bath. The algae functions both as a towel and as an occasional snack. Here we discover completely new aspects of algae. However, most of the algae ends up not in a bath, but in the factory. Each day a truck drives up with the precious cargo.
매일 저 120kg짜리를 우리 기계 생산 라인으로 해서 한 120대 정도. 120개 정도. 네, 저것이 숫자가 들어옵니다. 매일.
First, the algae is placed in vats of water. It is softened here and oxygenated so it stays fresh longer. Sun Pil-so wants to show us the rest of the production process. The sushi wrappings his factory produces are renowned around the world as the best.
이런 이물질.
Then the algae is chopped up. In its present form, it couldn't be processed.
이렇게 절단을 해야 우리가 그 김장 스시용을 만들 수 있어요.
The next step is for the algae to be washed in fresh water. Here too, it's very important to taste it.
여기서는 그 바다에서 자라는 것이라 그 김 엽채가 짠 성분을 가지고 있어요. 그래서 민물로 그 염을 빼는 숙성 역할을 하는 역할을 해요.
The algae water mixture is then taken to the filling plant. The proportion of water and algae determines how thick the sushi wrapper will be. This machine presses the sushi wrapper into the right shape. Sponges then get rid of the excess water. Finished. Now the wrappers have to be dried. This takes place in the heating section, almost 20 meters long. The wrappers spend 2 hours in here. And this also wraps up the question of where the algae wrappers for our sushi restaurants originate. But the algae wrappers are often utilized in Korea as well, because Koreans have their own kind of sushi. Gimbap looks like sushi, but instead of fish, usually it only contains a mixture of vegetables, ham, and egg. Here, the wrappers are roasted in sesame oil, and afterwards they are salted. The roasting process gives them a green tint. Dae-myung Lee deals with roasted sushi wrappers every day. But that certainly doesn't mean he's had enough of them.
이제 아기를 키우는 입장에서 있다 보니까는 아무래도 위생적인 면에서 신경을 쓰기도 하고 특히 중요한 것은 맛이다 보니까 이제 짜지도 않고 너무 기름도 많지 않고 이제 그런 거를 매일 수시로 확인을 해가면서 모니터링을 하고 있다 보니까는 뭐 질린다거나 그런 맛은 아직 없습니다.
But why is this particular region one of the biggest algae cultivation areas in the world? After all, there's plenty of water in other places too. But here in Wando, the water quality is particularly good, creating ideal conditions for algae and snails. The roasted algae wrappers are now cut to shape and then packaged. And now we also understand the secret of those curious shapes in the ocean of South Korea. From South Korea, we travel on to Alaska. In Alaska, of all places, in the endless ice-cold expanses of North America, we find a town with citizens literally living on top of each other in this high-rise block. Apart from a handful of seasonal workers, all 218 residents of the village live here. An entire town under one roof. But why? Nick Swain grew up here in Whittier. He lives in apartment 412 with his bulldog and his pregnant girlfriend. They met as teenagers in the town, or rather in the apartment block.
She lived on the 5th floor and I lived on the 10th floor, but we always ended up at our friend Brandy's house, who lived in the 8th floor. And then I found out we were having a baby, and I got my own apartment and everything to start my family.
These days, Nick also works in the building as one of the 3 maintenance men. His first stop every morning is the building administration.
I got a work order here. It's for Unit 1001. I think there's a problem in their heat line. And then also 1212 kitchen sink leak.
Okay.
So if you don't mind checking those for us.
All right.
Here's the work order.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll go get it done.
The building has 15 floors and 198 apartments. Rents for the apartments vary between 800 and 1,200 euros per month.
BTI maintenance. Hey Bob, you home?
Doors are usually not locked. Everyone knows each other and trusts each other. The tenant isn't at home, but Kurt and Nico, the other 2 maintenance men, come by. They quickly spot the problem. This is the 10th radiator in the building that has broken down this week.
The actuator's not working, so the heat is staying wide open. So when he comes in here, it's 90 degrees in here. We don't like 90-degree weather. Yeah, this stuff's outdated, and as it's going out, we're replacing it. Sometimes we come across something that's 4 generations out of technology.
No wonder the apartment block was built 60 years ago, originally as an army-based defense against the Soviet Union in the Cold War. In the 1950s, it was the tallest building in Alaska. The US Army moved out in 1974. The barracks were transformed into individual apartments. But to this day, nobody except the military can build anything in the town, which is why there aren't any new houses or apartment blocks in Whittier. So the whole town lives in one apartment block, with almost everything you could need. A recycling depot, for example, in the middle of the building. The city offices are on the ground floor. The mayor has his office here too. In the basement, we come across a church used by 3 different congregations every Sunday. And a tunnel takes you to the school in the very next building. 35 children have lessons here each day, from 1st to 12th grade. This footage of the school is from the local TV station. This week there are vacations here in Whittier. That's why children like Nicole and Avi are at home.
I love that it's small, but at the same time I don't like how small it is. Yeah. I don't know how to elaborate on that much, but I do like having such a very close community. So.
Her mother Veronica came here from the Philippines 8 years ago with her family. She found a job here in Whittier, round the corner of course.
See, I work on that plant which is said Great Pacific. If you can see that sign right there, that's a Great Pacific seafood I worked at. If we want to see something like who's going to anchor in, who's walking, we use this vernacular. Oh, we find out, oh, he's going to the bar, so we know who's going. That's how bored we are,
To combat the boredom, we head 2 floors down.
Oh, everybody is here!
So the kids have something to do in the vacation. Veronica and her friends rented an empty apartment, cheap, and turned it into a playroom. But why doesn't anybody play outside?
I'm outside because I'm scared to go outside. Because it's too windy.
It's too windy. We can't throw football outside, stuff like that. Just sit in the lobby, ride the elevator, up and down.
I'm not really much of a person who goes outside, so I guess it doesn't affect me as much. But when I do go outside, I'm always like, wow, this would be great with a blanket right now.
There is almost always an ice-cold wind whistling through Whittier, with gusts of up to 70 kilometers an hour. Temperature with wind chill factor, even in spring, minus 25 degrees. No wonder the streets here are deserted. But there is also a yacht marina and plenty of shops all around. Because the town is transformed in summer. For 2 months, the sun virtually never sets here and it's over 20 degrees. Then 3,000 tourists turn up every weekend. Which explains the hotel in the building, up on the 15th floor. June Miller opened it 15 years ago.
That's the presidential suite.
June rents out 8 suites like this. In the high season, she can charge $350 a night. Most of her guests are deep-sea fishermen who often bring their whole families. So in July and August, June becomes a travel guide.
In the summertime versus the winter, we have back-to-back reservations. We have people checking out in the morning and then we hurry up and clean. And then we have people that come and get keys and get, parking instructions and say, oh, we're going here, we're going there, and we're all gonna go, catch this boat. And I said, I tell them how to park their car and what to watch out for today. If there's a bear running around, to watch out for the bears when they go out to the parking lot.
Of course, June herself also lives in the apartment block. She's been in Whittier for 25 years, and she's sort of unofficial mayoress here. Everyone knows her, and she knows everyone. Even if June needs something for dinner after training, she doesn't have to go outside. There's the Cozy Corner store on the ground floor, their very own supermarket.
If I don't have to leave the building, I can stay here for months on end without even having to go into Anchorage. And some people pride themselves and say, I didn't have to go to Anchorage for 6 months, and the only time I had to go was to the dentist or the chiropractor. So people pride themselves into staying here because we have everything we need.
But there are also genuine commuters in this town. The next morning at 6:30, Keith Pratt leaves for work. His wife works in the city office, but he has to commute to the capital, Anchorage, every day.
Drive safe.
Keith's workplace is 50 kilometers away, almost an hour's drive. If he gets to the tunnel on time, that is.
Tunnel opens in 4 minutes, so we'll be all right because it stays open for 5 in the morning on cold mornings like this.
Whittier is surrounded by mountains. The only way in or out of the place is a single-lane tunnel. Every half an hour, the traffic direction changes, but the gates at the entrance only open for 5 minutes. Otherwise, the wind and the icy air could cause a rock fall in the tunnel. There are just inches to spare on each side of the car.
There's been accidents in the tunnel where somebody will hit the curb, not react properly, wreck their car, they'll have to get towed out. Last year, there was a high-speed chase that came from Seward, and then came up in, and a guy came down Portage Road, crashed through the gate at the front, and drove into the tunnel, and the cops got him somewhere in the middle of the tunnel.
Incidentally, the tunnel is only open from 7 in the morning to 10 at night. After that, nobody can get into or out of Whittier. Only rescue vehicles can use the tunnel then. At 7:15, Keith is on the highway heading towards Anchorage, one of the finest commuter routes in the world. In Whittier too, a new day is beginning. The high-rise block in the Gulf of Alaska, a beautiful situation. But the ravages of time are taking their toll on the former army barracks. The facade has been in need of renewal for years. And there are even bigger problems. The heating system in the cellar, for example. It's so old, maintenance man Nick has to adjust the steam feed by hand several times a day. The building is completely independent. All repairs have to be approved by the residents who pay for them, and there are some urgent needs.
Yeah, the building itself, it's in pretty rough shape. We want to redo our whole boiler system, and we also have to redo the drains, down the main drain, and it's pretty corroded. I actually have a picture around here somewhere. This is what one of the main drains looks like right here. And if that doesn't get done and something major busts there, the whole building's gonna be out in a honey bucket. And we don't want that.
The citizens of Whittier could soon be in for repairs costing millions. It isn't at all clear how much longer the apartment block will be financially viable. Losing it would be a tragedy for the unofficial mayoress of the town.
The reason I love Whittier is I love the water, I love mountains, I love glaciers, I love just being in this big building. It's so secure, it's so comfortable.
Despite the bad weather, despite being trapped inside, the people here are devoted to their mysterious place because it is home for them. From Alaska, we head on to our next mysterious place, which is in France. We find our next mysterious place on the west coast of France. Here, a very curious road links an island to the mainland. Apparently, we are in the right place. The nearer we get to our destination, the more warning signs appear, in various languages too. Apparently, extreme danger lurks here. But why are so many vehicles parked by the road? What are they waiting for? The GPS tells us to drive on, but the road goes right into the ocean. Water as far as the eye can see. Apart from the island we can make out on the horizon. So, is there no way of driving across? Or does the road reappear at some point? We decided to ask.
Est-ce que vous savez pourquoi les voitures elles stationnent sur la route devant?
Alors en fait, elles attendent de passer sur la route, ce sera bon à peu près dans 30 minutes. Tout à des touristes, parce que l'eau arrive plus vite qu'on ne le croit en fait. Donc il peut arriver qu'ils mettent du temps à rentrer dans la voiture et que du coup, ils restent coincés.
So, back to the underwater road. And sure enough, there it is. Emerging from the Atlantic Ocean, up to 300,000 cars a year use this road, which is about 5 kilometers in length. Tourists in particular don't appreciate the danger on this unusual route. Karine runs a restaurant on the road. She keeps a lookout with binoculars for tourists who don't make it to the land. And in emergencies, she raises the alarm.
Un peu traumatisé, hein, complètement même. Ouais. L'histoire, c'est que leur véhicule est resté dans l'eau et ils perdent pas mal de choses. De voitures, ils étaient à la pêche, ils ont perdu leurs clés. Ça arrive régulièrement aussi. Et puis après, il y a ceux qui comprennent rien, tout simplement. Hein.
But what exactly is so dangerous about this road? On foot, we realize quickly the sea has left its mark. There is algae everywhere. The surface is wet and slippery. That leads to the danger of skidding on the road. We meet a road maintenance team. They tell us that they check the road every time the tide goes out and, as far as possible, clean it up. Jean-Charles is with the volunteer fire brigade. He and his colleagues regularly have to turn out for rescue missions.
Des fois, ils ne regardent pas assez les informations, les indications qu'il y a sur le pleine mer et le basse mer et ne connaissent pas tout à fait des fois le phénomène des marées. Combien de temps avant ou après en fonction du coefficient où on peut passer. Et il y a toujours des gens qui sont un petit peu plus malins que les autres et qui veulent passer malgré que la mer monte. Et c'est comme ça qu'ils restent coincés en plein milieu parce qu'il y a une partie du Gois qui va rester découverte. Mais au milieu, il y a de l'eau déjà. Et en fait, arrivés au milieu, ils ne peuvent plus faire demi-tour, ils sont encerclés par la marée.
But what can you do if the way back is blocked and the water is getting closer? We notice some strange towers at the roadside rising up into the sky. Surely this local fisherman can explain.
Bonjour, excusez-moi.
Délimiter déjà le passage du Gois, la route quoi, on va dire comme ça. Et ensuite, en cas de, quand on est mal pris par la marée ou on se réfugie là. Mais enfin, ça n'arrive pas souvent. Faut pas...
So if somebody is cut off here by the water, they can reach a safe place. And there is certainly a fine view. People do get stuck out here up to 10 times a year, despite the warning signs. There are 3 towers along the road, almost 5 kilometers in length. So in emergencies, the distances between the life-saving platforms would be much too great. That's why there are also these posts. It's obvious at once that old people and children would find it hard to climb them in emergencies. But why do cars sink beneath the water and people get stranded so often? After all, there are plenty of warning signs, and the times of high and low tide are easy to find out.
J'en ai vu, moi, il y a encore pas longtemps, ils étaient là-bas, ils sont garés là-bas, et puis ils restent dans le... Et puis, voilà, quoi. Et non, ça va pas être bien.
Non.
La voiture, elle va pas être belle.
Non.
Puis les gens, ils vont payer.
The people who underestimate the powerful force of the ebb and flood tides are mainly tourists. The problem is that they park on the sandbanks next to the road. If they wait too long, the water rises and the sand becomes soft. The wheels sink in and they can't get away. Are tourists really so foolhardy? The region is well known for its mussels. Visitors dig for them in the sand. In about 2 hours, everything here will be swallowed up. But do the tourists know that?
2 heures après. Après, c'est au risque et péril.
Vous allez vous y tenir?
Oui, je vais imiter parce que j'ai ma petite femme qui va me téléphoner une heure à l'avance pour dire hey, tu rapatries.
14h30 et encore, on peut pêcher même plus près du Gois, donc oui, on peut y être jusqu'à 15h. Hein. Puis quand on regarde après, il faut regarder les gens autour de soi et puis qui remontent, qui reviennent vers leur voiture, donc on se dit bon, allez.
The lady is a whole hour out, and relying on other people is also dangerous. The tide is starting to come in. Slowly, things are getting hectic all around us. Cars are leaving the road. The warning signs at the entrance are turned on. When the water comes, it comes quickly. But still, there are drivers who take their chances and try to get across. The first parts of the road are already underwater. There is simply no way through now. In a matter of minutes, the road is swallowed up by the Atlantic again. At least until the tide goes out next time. From France, our journey continues to Switzerland. In Switzerland, there are houses which conceal a secret. The window frames are only glued in place, and the curtains are painted on concrete. These sheds look suspiciously like dummies as well. What's the secret behind these curious buildings? Maybe the locals can help us. We show them some photographs of the curious buildings and ask what they are. Does anybody live there? And if so, who? But we soon establish that nobody has any idea.
Sieht aus wie ein altes Bauernhaus, aber einfach umgebaut. Also das würde ich sagen, ist ein Wohnhaus. Das sieht irgendwie verlassen aus. Nein.
Keine Ahnung.
Nein.
Keine Ahnung, wo diese Häuser stehen.
Finally, we do meet somebody who can help, and most importantly, is allowed to talk about the subject. Silvio Keller is going to initiate us into the secret of these curious buildings, of which there are many more in Switzerland. There are even some in the middle of the forest. Just a few years ago, Keller would have been thrown in jail for these revelations.
Gut getarnt, ist halb gewonnen. Das ist ein Infanteriebunker, sehr solide gebaut. Sie sehen 2 Meter dicke Mauern, sehr solid auch mit der Stahlscharten und so. Und die Tarnung, das ist einfach ein Sichtschutz, dass man vom See her den ganzen Bunker nicht sieht.
It's the same with this villa. And this inconspicuous barn is in fact the entrance to a secret underground kingdom. It looks from the outside as though it would just about have room for a couple of farm implements. But in fact, it's a military labyrinth extending over several floors. In the middle of the 1990s, there were 26,000 military bunkers in Switzerland. Several thousand of them are still active today. Most of them date back to the Second World War.
1940, da war der Einmarsch der Deutschen in Frankreich. Und dann war das Resultat, dass die Schweiz, dieser kleine weiße Flecken, komplett von den Achsenmächten umzingelt war.
Switzerland, the only neutral country, is surrounded by lands that are at war. It's frightening. The government develops a radical plan in case of invasion. Part of Switzerland will be abandoned. The army and the population will withdraw to the mountains, where they will dig in, using bunkers like this.
Also wir sind hier im Eingangsbereich. Da stand ein Wehrmann mit schussbereitem Gewehr. Und er hatte eine Schutzmaske an gegen 2 Sorten von Gas. Das eine wäre das Kampfgas gewesen des allfälligen Feindes und das andere die giftigen Abgase beim Schießen. Beim Gewehr noch nicht so erheblich wie dann bei der Kanone. Und er konnte dafür seine Schutzmaske anschließen an diesem Schlauch und bekam über diesen Schlauch gefilterte, saubere Luftversorgung.
The Swiss didn't just plan to bury themselves, they made sure they could really carry on living in their bunkers. For example, there's an electrically powered ventilation system that also works during war. Active charcoal filters clean the stale air. Fresh air can be obtained not only from above, but in the case of a gas attack, also from below, from the underground area. The fumes from the cannons can also be filtered, so the soldiers don't suffocate while they are firing them.
Aber der Strom kann auch ausfallen, der kommt ja über eine Freileitung. Und dann gibt es da eben ein Fitnessgerät, das heißt, mit diesem Gerät konnte man die Luftumwälzung trotzdem gewährleisten. Ist nicht ganz einfach, das in Betrieb zu setzen, aber man war ja auch zu zweit.
Each bunker has enough food for several weeks. A carefully planned schedule ensures that the soldiers remain fit. In this case, the facility was manned by 18 soldiers and a commanding officer.
Sechs haben geschlafen, 6 haben gegessen und so, und die anderen 6 waren eben an den Waffen.
Guns, and not only rifles, all sorts of weaponry was hidden in the rocks, including a big cannon in the middle of the village, which is still there. Although the Swiss were spared direct involvement in the war, they maintained their bunkers. More than that, the camouflage shed with painted wooden planks was only added in the 1960s. The reason? The Cold War. Fear of Russia. The Swiss wanted to be able to defend themselves. With this, for example.
Stahlgranate 14,5 Kilo, 10 Kilo Sprengstoff, 4 Kilo Stahlsplitter. Das wird eingeschoben, ein zweiter Mann ist bereit und übernimmt die Granate und schlägt sie mit diesem Holzstock rauf, wo die Züge beginnen. Dann kommt die Hülse. Hier hat es das Schießpulver drin, Treibladung, und hier hinten ist die Zündkapsel. Das wird eingeschoben, Verschluss zu, und das Geschütz ist geladen.
The cannons are almost 70 years old. They were never upgraded. With thousands of bunkers, it would have cost too much. But there was never any question of abandoning these positions. It's hard to believe soldiers were stationed here up to 1993, long after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. Apparently, mistrust of their neighbors is deep-seated for the Swiss, like the yearning for security.
Wir waren immer ein kriegerisches Volk. Wir sind das einfach. Also die Schweiz ist klein und die wollte man verteidigen und hat das mit allen Mitteln dann versucht.
The Swiss are famous for their defensive measures. But are the rumors true? It's said that every man has a gun at home. And submarines cruise at the bottom of the lakes unnoticed.
Von den U-Booten habe ich nie etwas gehört. Aber wir haben als Wehrmänner haben wir unsere Waffe zu Hause gehabt. Und das wurde vor etwa 2 Jahren wurde das relativiert. Man darf heute, wenn die Frau das nicht gern sieht oder wenn man selber nicht so wohl ist dabei, kann man die Waffe im Zeughaus einlagern lassen.
Bunkers aren't only for the armed forces. Some private houses also have their own shelters with thick concrete walls.
Die Schutzraumbaupflicht, die besteht tatsächlich, wäre fast aufgehoben worden. Das eidgenössische Parlament hatte das schon geplant. Und dann kam Fukushima und dann wurde dieser Beschluss wieder rückgängig gemacht, indem man gesagt hat, es ist halt doch besser, wenn auch jeder in seinem eigenen Haus einen Schutzraum hat.
But this law doesn't enjoy universal approval in Switzerland.
Nee, ich musste einen Platz kaufen in einem öffentlichen Bunker, in einer öffentlichen Unterkunft.
Das haben Sie wirklich gekauft?
Ja, musste ich. Entweder musste ich einen Luftschutzkeller bauen in meinem Haus oder einen Platz kaufen.
In contrast to the civilian bunkers, the Swiss army installations have been cut back a lot now for cost reasons. Since the mid-1990s, the army has given up over half of its facilities, like this artillery emplacement in the mountains, for example. But like many others, this is being kept in working order by enthusiasts.
Grosse Aufgabe ist eigentlich auch die Überwachung der Anlagen, dass nicht Spionage und so jemand reinkommt, der da nicht rein darf.
Diese Leute unterstanden einer ganz strengen Geheimhaltung. Also offiziell hat nicht einmal die Frau zu Hause gewusst, wo der Mann arbeitet. Auch wenn das nur einige 100 Meter von zu Hause war, in einem Felswerk oder so, die haben geschwiegen.
There are still several thousand active army bunkers in Switzerland which are military secrets. But today, many of the mountain bunkers have been decommissioned, so they're no longer confidential. Some are open to the public. There's even a book showing the best camouflaged buildings. There is little danger that they will disappear in the immediate future, because ultimately it's cheaper to maintain the camouflage than demolish the concrete fortresses. And this way, the Swiss get to keep their mysterious bunkers. Our next mysterious place is in Colombia. We are visiting a mysterious place which has a rather eerie atmosphere. A place of healing run by exorcist Hermano Hermes.
En medio de las tinieblas y de la oscuridad hay una luz. Esa luz es tu ángel guardián.
The exorcist lives in La Cumbre, a small village in the Colombian Andes. We have come to find out what's behind this mysterious place. In the middle of the mountains, the exorcist has created his own empire, including a homemade corrugated iron church. Although Hermes looks like a member of the clergy, he has never been ordained. He simply started calling himself a priest and an exorcist. Nevertheless, the people here are convinced of Hermes's abilities. After all, his gift runs in the family. His grandmother and his father both healed people in this way. Hermes has been performing exorcisms himself regularly for over 20 years. His first patients have just arrived. Before each exorcism, Hermes first performs a diagnosis.
El papá también entra, la señora y el niño se quedan allá, ¿no?
Andres complains of extreme fits of rage, and his parents claim he possesses almost superhuman power when he has one of his fits. The exorcism starts with a preliminary examination.
Espíritu Santo, 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 Espíritu Santo.
And we find this very disconcerting.
Espíritu Santo, Espíritu Santo. ¿De quién te ríes? ¿De quién te ríes?
De todos.
Sí.
It almost seems as though the boy has practiced his part. Can it be genuine? The exorcist claims it is. He breaks off the examination with a gesture which is familiar from hypnosis.
Espíritu Santo. No quiero hacer más. No se puede forzar el cuerpo. Padre, Hijo, Espíritu Santo.
The next patient is already waiting for exorcism.
¿Cómo has estado, hermana? ¿Qué cuentas?
Ay,
¿Cómo te has sentido? ¿Estás maluca?
sí, señor. Yo voy para 15 días, así que...
¿Has ido donde el médico?
Sí, señor.
The same procedure. Hermes addresses the alleged demon directly.
¿Quién te manda? ¿El vecino que tiene? ¿Cómo se llama?
Tamayo.
Jorge Tamayo. ¿Usted tiene un vecino que se llama Jorge Tamayo? ¿Sí? ¿Cómo te llamabas?
Ellos no debían estar.
It is claimed that Maria's neighbor sent a spirit to possess her.
Padre, en el Hijo y en el Espíritu Santo. Padre, Hijo y Espíritu Santo. Es como ver la sombra.
Hay mucho desespero, mucho dolor de cabeza. Y a ratos sin ganas de vivir. Sentirse uno enfermo.
Y hay un espíritu de un negrito que lo mataron y una bruja se lo manda allá para que le haga daño y le mata animales.
The following day, the exorcisms themselves take place. Hermes's wife, Jacqueline, prepares everything. The wreath is to represent Jesus' crown of thorns, which is why it is adorned with pins in the form of a cross. For Hermes, crosses are the most powerful weapon against evil, which is why each line is also given a cross of pins. To protect the people, Hermes also has ribbons, white eggs, garlic, white gloves, and a curious black mixture which is rubbed into the patient's skin.
Esto lleva un carbón de un árbol especial y otros ingredientes y otras cositas que son ya secretos.
All the elements for the exorcism are stored in the church overnight. The following morning at 4 o'clock, Hermes prays to gain strength for the impending battle. And now he prepares the ground for the exorcisms. All the protective elements must be positioned with great accuracy. The patients are now also prepared. How do they feel just before the ritual?
Yo confío en Dios que todo esto va a acabar, que va a acabar tanto sufrimiento que ha tenido, hecho daño a muchas personas.
Not everyone is so confident.
Pues no sé hasta qué me pueda pasar o...
But now it's too late to back out. The ritual begins. The eggs placed on the body are to rid it of the spirit possessing it. It is said that after the ritual they are full of black energy, so it is very hard to break them. The exorcist first calls upon the alleged spirit to do something.
Contempla esta también se me la vida, que comienza amor por el que concebiste en tu seno la vida del Hijo de Dios. Santa María, Madre del Amor Hermoso, protégenos. Que la gracia de nuestro Señor Jesucristo, el amor del... Hábleme, a ver. Y ríase todo lo que quiera. Hazlo. Hazlo. ¿De quién te ríes? ¿Por qué está usted en ese cuerpo? Cuente.
Él me llamó.
¿Quién te llamó?
Él.
Esta materia, este cuerpo.
Sí.
¿Para qué te llamó?
Para que lo saque tanto dolor, tantas cosas.
No lo protege, ¿cierto?
Hermes talks to the supposed demon.
No lo protege, ¿verdad?
¿Para qué?
¿Para qué? Dile a aquellos que no creen que tú eres un espíritu. Fuerte y duro. ¿Cómo la tomas? A ver.
The laughter sounds like something from a horror film, but it's really genuine. Suddenly, Andres loses control of himself. The assistants have to hold him tight to stop him injuring himself. And then the actual exorcism takes place. Hermes has already told us, Andres' exorcism will be the most difficult.
Quita las manos, quítate de ahí, retírate. En el nombre de Dios Todopoderoso. Que Dios te perdone. Te vas a despedir del hermano Hermes hoy. ¿Qué sientes por el hermano Hermes cuando te tiene aquí? Mucha paz. Dilo duro.
Paz.
Más fuerte.
Paz.
Párate en el nombre de Dios. Párate. ¿Y qué quieres ver la luz?
Quiero ver la luz.
Dilo fuerte.
Quiero ver la luz.
Levanta tu mano. Despídete. Despídete. ¿Qué quieres decir? Dale duro.
Adiós.
Adiós.
After half an hour's struggle, the ritual is over for Andres. The exorcist says the spirit has left him now. For Hermes' last exorcism today, things don't go as planned. It takes 20 minutes, and absolutely nothing happens. But Hermes still claims it's a complete success.
Para mí y para Dios, ya listo. Eso no es nada más, no necesita nada más. Yo les mando unos baños de hierbas para que se bañen en su casa y ahí ya no más. Ya no necesitan de ir a un hospital o a un médico ni nada de esas cosas, ya no.
And that is precisely the problem. The patients don't go to the doctor afterwards.
Por dentro de mí sentí que me dolía por acá, que me estuvieran arrancando un pedazo de mí, como si fuera una persona nueva.
Andres also seems relieved.
Los síntomas me fueron así. No quería saber nada de mi vida, quería suicidarme, muchas cosas. Y ahora me siento más tranquilo. Ya tengo que apreciar lo que tengo.
The people in Colombia believe in Hermes' abilities, so there is no doubt that they will continue to come full of hope to this mysterious place.